Hello and welcome back to Mechabellum. My name is Vakata, and as you can see below, once again I did not have the recording software running while just casually playing the game, and I had a game that I thought maybe I should post this. So as you probably know by the thumbnail and the title, we pivot from our usual strategy and kind of abuse giants in this one. So let's just load it up and talk about it as it goes along. So anyone who regularly watches my videos from Mechabellum knows that I heavily favor supply specialist, or at least something that has a persistent buff or benefit. And here we had nothing given to us. And aerial specialist, I toy with that sometimes, but giant specialist was there and I thought, you know what? Let's do it. Let's try it. I don't usually use it, but I know that the new war factories are considered giants. And I saw that it came with steel balls as one of the starting units, and I figured, well, maybe that'll lend us to pivoting into war factories if the match goes that direction. So I thought, let's give it a try. You only get better by trying things that you don't normally do. Now, you might also be familiar with my dislike for starting with mixed speed units. So of course we start here with fangs and with steel balls, and they're at different speed from each other. So you got that balancing act of trying to have them, run into combat in the first round without knowing where the opponent units are going to be, and having them, kind of meet at the same time. So it's kind of a blind guess. I don't want to put the steel balls so far forward that a defensive opponent, puts everything in the back, and then my steel balls run all the way out and just die. So that's kind of the maneuvering that we do here. Fortunately, it comes out just about right. We're arriving in combat just about the same time. We do want the steel balls to kind of get a little bit ahead normally because, they're a little tankier. Of course, in this case, it doesn't really work out in their favor a whole lot because they don't tank Phoenixes very well. And our opponent is the supply specialist, which allowed them to do a first turn Mustang, which was a very good choice. It's something that I would have considered doing if I had been in their place. So we get walked all over, which is, again, not surprising. So let's go ahead and pop up to round two. Now again, I'm not big on giants. I'll use them when I think that they're called for, but for the most part I don't go for them. But round two, the discount for giants, it's free for us to unlock them. The opponent has already shown that they're going with spam units. Extreme response. That's right, we're getting a round two Vulcan without borrowing money and with taking a card. So, pretty nice. And it's going to do great work. I'm going to look at all these spam units, and Vulcan just wading into them happily. And our opponent did double down on their Mustangs, which honestly I don't think was a great idea. Even if I hadn't gone with Vulcans, I was going to have to respond to his Mustangs, which means I would probably be prepared for them. Had we not been giant specialists, I probably would have skipped the card this round so that we would have had 450 supplies, which would have been enough to unlock Mustangs, and I would have brought a pair of them out myself to set up for high explosive Mustangs to be the chaff clear. Either way, they probably should have shifted for something a little more tanky, especially if they had paid attention and noticed that I was giant specialist. I feel like they probably should have gone either like steel balls, or maybe start getting some marksmen on the table to start leveling them up, preparing for when I would eventually go giant. So we both take speed specialists. Speed specialist I think worked out pretty well for me because, the Vulcan is slow, the fangs are slow, and we're doing a little bit of just kind of some backline marksman. Just, we're not investing in it heavily, just had a little bit of money left over for it. And that round we spent most of our money on getting range enhancement for our Vulcan just so that they don't have to move as far to get to all these different shaft units. Now, unfortunately, our Vulcan locks onto the fortress right at the beginning. Now that's good for them. Maybe that was the point to putting the fortress up front. However, it is a golden rule, at least in my book, to never put a giant or an important single target unit right in the front line, because there's very little you can do to protect it after that first gotcha moment. So the opponent gets away with that round. I did not expect a fortress. I really didn't. But now I know it's there. There's not a whole lot they can do to adequately protect it from, direct fire. And we're going to take advantage of that. So we've taken the EMP shot and thrown that on our Vulcan, because the Vulcan is all about splash damage, so it's going to apply it as widely as possible. We're grabbing ourselves a melting point to directly respond to the fortress, giving it range. We're going to toy around just a little bit with where we want it. Honestly, where I want it is directly behind the Vulcan, but the marksman's in the way. So I kind of toy around with, well, where do I want it, to really be? Because I don't want it, again, a giant too close to the front because of, the same problem that they're getting ready to face, which is making it difficult to defend it. But since we have to put it so far forward to make sure it does lock on, as you can see, its range with the extended range is going to put straight on it, we put something in the way. We'll just drop down some generic things. They're meant to die quick, that's fine. It's just buying enough time for nothing to target the melting point. And the melting point takes down that fortress just lickety-split. Now we've got our steel balls getting on the second fortress, which is nice, and there is a marksman. Because only level 1, not huge damage, but marksmen, they get fixated on a target, and that damage does add up over time. Unfortunately, our melting point did go down, and our marksman is about all we have left for anti-air, but we do have a few stray things there to distract them. So we're not going to get big points out of this one, but we're not going to go backwards, and sometimes that's good enough. Now we've seen Orbital Javelin, and I kind of expect them to take it. I wanted to take it as well because I know he's a fortress. But with the amplifying course, I could put it on the melting point. I just assume that we're going to lose something this round to a javelin. So we also drop down another melting point to address the other fortress right off, with the expectation that they might start spamming fortresses and maybe looking to go, rocket fortress. And we toy around a little bit with the placement of our melting point. And ultimately what we're trying to do here is space it out enough so that if we need to shield them in the future, we can put a fortress with a shield right in between and just cover everything. We needed to have it over far enough to be able to target that fortress quickly. We also grabbed the electromagnetic barrage because we knew they were picking up abilities and shields, and that's really good for getting through all that. Fortunately, we get a bit overwhelmed. We also noticed that they have been slowly adding more phoenixes to the line, so we need to make sure that we can handle those as well. So we're going to pick up Shield Device. I think Shield Device is one of the best cards you can get for it being a free card. Any little delay that a shield can deliver can go a long way to turning the tide of a fight. So we're going to drop down another Vulcan. This is going to kind of be a frontline tank for our second melting point, as well as to just make sure that our melting points don't get bogged down on all the little chaff. And we've picked up range for Vulcans, range for melting points, where we want to make sure we don't have to have them move if we don't have to. The more time that they're dealing damage, the better off we are. We're also relying on this to help us out with, the Phoenixes. Because, melting point solves everything, right? And the combo is working out quite well. You see how long our shield lasted thanks to that shield card. Now our opponent also picked up the shield card, but they're using the shields that are inherent to their fortress, which do not get the bonus as far as I'm aware. And the long range on our melting points ensures that we can quickly take down all those Phoenixes without spending time, slowly walking our way to them. And unfortunately, this round we see Strike Specialist come up, and we're going to grab it initially because we want to get it out of the pool. But also, once we buy it, kind of consider, well, we could probably use it for flanking. I'm not a big flanking fan. If you put things on the flank, a lot of times you end up just feeding XP to whatever the response is on the next round. But we know that this is the last round if we win. So whatever surprise that we have doesn't have to maintain itself. So we're going to drop in another pairing, another Vulcan and melting point pairing, and we're going to bring them up over here in the corner. The Vulcan is meant to be the tank, mostly because it can't target air, and we need to have the melting points be able to fire on the Phoenixes. Our opponent brings in a War Factory, kind of a little bit of a desperation move. What they really need here is the Quantum Reassembly for their Phoenix if they're going to do that, because then they can make a regenerating army. We can pretty much predict how this is going to go. This front line status just didn't change, and our back line has no problem walking its way through. You can see that that Vulcan almost got taken out before it could take out the tower just by those Phoenixes, which is why we wanted it in front rather than the melting points. But melting points get on the fortress, and the inevitable marches its way to a very predictable conclusion. So that's just a little bit of giant abuse. To be honest, I don't really feel so great about it. I'm not a big fan of flanking, but it has its places. And as to what our opponent could have done about this, he doesn't have Rocket Punch on his fortress. Those would have helped. Probably they should have gone Melting Point instead of Fortress, just right from the beginning. As soon as the Vulcan came up, they committed to going to Giants. And they were supply specialists, so they did have extra income. But their commitment went to Fortress rather than Melting Point, and I think that was a mistake on their part. Also, of course, as I stated before, don't put your Giants right up in the front, because it's very hard to defend them, and it's easy for units to specifically target them to eliminate them first. But the opponent was very nice. We spoke a little bit in chat, and it's always good to encounter an opponent that is a good sport. I hope this was entertaining, a little bit short, but it was a quick, brutal match where Giants ruled the day. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in a future video. If you enjoyed this, you may want to check out one of these other videos, and thank you very much for your time.